This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. What's going on, you guys? Welcome back, man, to another King Japes video. We're going to keep this one kind of short and sweet and talk about a film stock that has recently gained the #1 spot of my favorite 35mm color film. Now, I feel like I change the answer to this question every couple of years or so. You know, at first it was Fuji Superia, then it was Lomo 800. But this time around, you guys, I feel like this is one that I may stick with kind of longer term. I can definitely see myself shooting this, you know, for the next 2 years. And I hope that in this video, I can weigh out the pros and cons and maybe get you guys on this film stock if you're not already on it. With that said, let's jump right into today's episode. My favorite film stock for a very long time at first was Fuji Superia 400. And Fuji Superia 400, don't get me wrong, is an excellent film stock. But as I shot more and more of it, I realized the main reason why I liked that film was the convenience. Fuji Superia 400 was always around. It's at Walmart, it's at CVS, it's at Walgreens. You can get it anywhere in that little 3-pack carton. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. And you know, it's just really available. And so that's kind of what made Fuji Superia nice for me. But in terms of, you know, creating like a body of work, my second go-to kind of color film was Lomo 800. And till this day, I still love Lomo 800. But it's a film stock that isn't available in stores all the time. You might have to go to a specialty store, a camera store, or maybe just order it online. And so the convenience side of Lomo 800 definitely isn't there yet. I hope it will be in the future. It's also a film that's very popular, so it's not gonna stay on the shelves if it ever does come to a store. And so that's kind of what made Lomo 800 a little bit hard for me to stick with long term. But recently, within the last maybe 4 to 5 months, there's been one film stock that I've been seeing more and more in camera stores here in the Bay Area, as well as, you know, just in some like regular kind of like mom and pop shops. It surprised me actually, because there's usually Ultramax and this film stock. The film stock we're going to be talking about today, you guys, is Kodak Gold 200, and they usually come in either individual rolls or in these kind of like 3-pack rolls right here. Kodak Gold 200, you guys, that is the film that I recently fell in love with. At a trip to Yosemite, there was 2 rolls that I shot in that episode. If you guys seen it, it's the most recent episode. First roll I shot was Fuji Superia 800. And Fuji Superia 800 was great, but it didn't really knock me off my boots. Is that even a knock me off my boots? I don't know. Fuji Superia 800 was a good film for me, but there's a lot of color shifts that goes on with like Fuji Superia films for some reason. You get a lot of magenta or maybe even like this super green cast. And so, you know, that in itself, looking at the Yosemite photos, weren't really hitting for me. But when I saw the scans from the Kodak Gold, I was amazed. And that's really kind of what changed the game for me and made me fall in love with this film stock. Kodak Gold, man, can give off some beautiful warmer tones, as well as just emphasize, you know, kind of the environment that you're in. I don't know if it may just be, you know, in Yosemite, but anytime that I do shoot Kodak Gold, there's a certain magic to it. And I've never really been disappointed with the way Kodak Gold 200 makes my images look. With that said, I haven't really noticed too many kind of color shifts. There may be some where it's extremely warm, and that's usually in like direct sunlight, or if what's around me has like some orange or red, brownish action going on. But for the most part, it's been a very neutral film stock that, you know, behaves really well under pretty much all conditions. Now, one thing that I do have to say about Kodak Gold, though, is that it's one of those film stocks that's right in the middle. You know, it's not kind of like your Kodak Color Plus on the lower end spectrum of things, and it's not your pro grade film stocks from Kodak like Portra or Ektar 100. It's a 200 ISO film, and there are a lot of pros and cons that you may want to weigh out before maybe going long term with it. And this is something that I've sat down with myself, you know, as I was editing some of my images, and thought of, because I'm always looking for a film stock to shoot consistently. You know, I always want to make sure, especially if I'm creating a body of work, which I will be in the near future, I want to have, you know, images that don't always look too different. And I think Kodak Gold is going to be the film for that, for me at least. Now, before we move on to the pros and cons, you guys, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to our sponsor for this episode, the good folks over at Squarespace. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. All right, guys, so as we transition into the holidays, one of the best gifts you can get your loved ones started with, especially if they are a creative photographer, videographer, is their own personalized website. Having your own website, especially leading now into the new year, is such a game changer for people who want to stand out from the crowd. And with Squarespace, they give you all the tools you need to get started, and it's very, very simple to use. You have award-winning templates that you guys can use to get up and running in minutes, as well as an option for an e-commerce shop and blog. And in my opinion, the best feature of all is the portfolio option that allows you to portray your work in your own dedicated space, with the option to have your own domain as well. And so if you guys want to get started with your own website or your own domain, head over to squarespace.com/kingjapes and enter promo code kingjapes at checkout to receive 10% off of your first purchase of a domain or a website. This would be a great gift not only for yourself, but for a loved one that wants to elevate their photography. So head over there, link will be in the description below. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this episode. All right, you guys, so as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about some of the pros and cons of this film stock. And I think I'm going to start here with some of the pros and then kind of get a little bit bitter towards the end. That did not come out right. What? All right, so the pros of Kodak Gold 200. Number one definitely has to be the color rendering. Very, very accurate to real life. You know, Kodak Gold is one of those more neutral film stocks. I would say Fuji Superia, if you've shot it before, you've definitely noticed some of those color shifts. The green and magenta casts that go over some of the underexposed areas. Kodak Gold, I feel like, doesn't really have that. No matter what, even if I underexpose areas of my film, it always has sort of this neutral look, which is great for all types of genres of photography. And I feel like that's something that is really, really solid in this film. Number two would definitely have to be the price point of Kodak Gold. Now, in local camera shops, I'm finding like a 3-pack around $30. That is kind of on the steeper end, and film prices have shot up recently like crazy, but that puts you at around $10 a roll, which now, when it's said, sounds pretty bad because back in the day, you could get a 3-pack of this stuff for like $12, but I miss 2016. But compared to some of the other films like Portra is like $16, $17 a roll right now, whereas Kodak Gold is, you know, still kind of on the lower spectrum of that kind of film pricing. So it's definitely not the cheapest film stock, but it's not the most expensive. Again, it's very, very centered. I'm going to leave some Amazon affiliate links down in the description below if you guys want to pick up some Kodak Gold. That's where pretty much I get my film from. And number three, the last pro that I have for this film, kind of depends on where you live, but at least in the San Francisco Bay Area, most camera shops will carry Kodak Gold. Whether that be the tourist shops in Chinatown or even like Glass Key Photo, they carry Kodak Gold. Most camera shops will, and that makes it for the most part more available than something like Lomography 800 or Portra, where a lot of times it's out of stock. 9 times out of 10 when I'm in the city and I'm out of film, I can walk into any one of those camera stores and find 2 film stocks, Fuji Superia 400 and Kodak Gold. And so if this is the alternative to Fuji Superia, it's definitely the one that I'm going for. Now, I know there are probably a ton of more pros to this film stock, like for example, you know, the grain structure, highlight retention and whatnot, but this isn't really kind of a review of the film. This is more so just telling you guys, you know, the film stock that I have been shooting lately, because I think I'm still kind of in the honeymoon phase. But now I want to talk a little bit more about the cons of the film. And the funny thing is, the only real, you know, negative things that I can think of about this film stock don't really have to do with how the film looks itself, but more so on the availability as well as ISO. Now, I know I said that Kodak Gold is fairly available in most camera stores in the San Francisco Bay Area, but it's also not, you know, as widely available as Fuji Superia. Fuji Superia, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but Fuji has a great deal going on with, you know, all of these kind of drugstores, and they've completely taken over, you know, the space for having film in a drugstore. And so if Kodak Gold can somehow make its way, and Kodak, I'm talking to you, you know, make its way into these drugstores again like they used to, and have more options, I think that would be great, because the only real option that I see anytime I walk into a CVS is Fuji Superia. Not all the time are we going to have the convenience of going to a camera store nearby, and so, you know, it's not always going to be there if we can't access those stores. And if CVS is the only store nearby and I need to shoot film, looks like I'm gonna have to shoot Fuji Superia. The second con of this film that I can think of would have to be the ISO limitations. Now, Kodak Gold is 200 ISO, which definitely makes it kind of like a more fine-grained film stock. But that also means that it's susceptible to some really bad low light situations. If you're shooting at night and you have 200 ISO film, you either need to shoot at a really wide aperture like 1.4, 1.2, or shoot at a very slow shutter speed. And you guys know that there are a ton of risks involved with dropping your shutter speed or just opening up wide open. 200 ISO really limits you to shooting in very nicely lit situations like in the sunlight, or maybe even like light cloudy days. But anything that's like super overcast, I don't know, rainy days, nighttime photography, indoors even, you might run into issues again with having to kind of open up and let more light in because it's such a low ISO film. And a lot of you guys might say, you know, why not shoot Kodak Ultramax over Gold? And I don't know what it is. Maybe again, I'm in the honeymoon phase, like I mentioned, but Kodak Gold just hits different compared to Ultramax. I don't know what it is, but Kodak Gold is a beast of a film. I think I want to do a review on this film stock here in a couple of weeks, or maybe in a month or two. I definitely want to get more rolls under my belt before I start talking and diving more in depth about it. But this is the film stock that I have been shooting like crazy in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Again, shot it in Yosemite. I've been doing street photography in the city, then got some rolls waiting to develop. And I'm really excited, you know, with this next chapter in my color film kind of thing. So that is going to wrap up this episode, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to know your guys' thoughts on this film stock in particular. You know, do you have any experience shooting with it? What are your thoughts on this film versus something like Portra or even like Ultramax, as well as even like Kodak Color Plus, because Color Plus and Kodak Gold, very similar. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, man. But thank you guys for tuning into this episode. I'll see you in the next one. As always, minimal to getting. Insane how tall everything is around you. I mean, I'm gonna give you guys a quick little 360 view here, starting from that way